Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Earthfiles YouTube channel, where tonight I'll share with you my recent interview about a new book at Amazon.com entitled Angst in the Shadows, a true story of alien abductions, copyright 2025 by author Erik Nanstiel, shown in this illustration with his left hand on a tall gray ET who is bent over Erik, while three smaller grays with large heads, black eyes, and black bodysuits watch nearby. The author is Erik Nanstiel, 56-year-old director, graphic designer, technical writer, and founder of Autism Information Research in Chicago, Illinois. Erik says that he has had gray extraterrestrials and their advanced technologies in his life since he was born in 1969. And in 1970, a year after he was born, a basketball-sized glowing white sphere came near Erik's crib. And then came four beings with light gray skin, large heads, big black eyes, wearing black bodysuits, who placed a black pyramid-shaped technology over Erik's testicles and penis to extract his sperm. Erik says from his childhood to adulthood, a group of grays like these wearing black leotards came often to collect Erik's sperm with the black pyramid device. Harvesting sperm is also known to many other human male abductees, implying that sperm collection is important to whatever the gray ET agenda is for Earth. In fact, the foreword in Erik Nanstiel's new book is written by another author and UFO abductee, Whitley Strieber. Whitley is known worldwide for his groundbreaking 1987 book, Communion, A True Story, about his missing time abduction experiences with gray extraterrestrials. It was 38 years ago, in January of 1987, that Whitley and I first met, and he autographed his book, Communion, quote, "For Linda Howe, fellow traveler between the worlds," close quote. And now, 38 years later, in July 2025, many more fellow Earth travelers like Erik Nanstiel in this illustration are trying to understand their own strange UFO ET abductions, missing time, and even non-human alien beings that float at odd angles in the air, as Erik has illustrated here. Erik told me that his gray alien encounters have persisted for 55 years since 1970, while the grays have become, quote, more complex and scary, close quote, to him. Which is why Erik Nanstiel used the word angst in his new 2025 book title, because of the fear and anxiety Erik feels as he realizes, quote, beneath the surface of ordinary human life, highly strange events are forming complex repeating patterns. And I realize that ET and human genetic hybrids and conducting, quote, extraterrestrial genetic experiments around the Earth where gray extraterrestrials inhabit large caverns deep underground, close quote.
The map was shown depicted three massive subterranean caverns under eastern Illinois. The map showed up, they brought me to a gray wall, and the wall turned into a screen. And what I saw was a monochromatic, meaning gray tone, illustration of the 48 contiguous United States. And it was zoomed in on the Midwest, where you could see Illinois at the center at a 30-degree angle. And the three caverns were clearly 3D depictions, so that the caverns were subterranean, and they're massive. They go from about the southern tip of Lake Michigan down to about Peoria, Illinois, in length. They are parallel to each other at the same depth, I'd say about a third of a mile underground. maybe 1,800 feet. And then the third one is between them, deeper down, maybe as deep as a half a mile underground. I've had experiences going back to infancy. My very first contact with small grays happened in 1994. I woke up suddenly because I felt there were beings or somebody was in my bedroom next to my bed, and I started to panic, but I was paralyzed, so I was shaking myself awake. And when I managed to wake myself, I shot up straight in bed, and as fast as I could turn my head to the left, I saw 4 small 3.5-foot gray aliens, and they were wearing black coveralls, and they whooshed out of my room like they were propelled or yanked it from the end of a string, being able to move mechanically on their own legs at that speed.
It is emerging, not just in your experience, but in other people I talk with, that there is an extraterrestrial agenda for the evolution and future of planet Earth.
Yes.
And that it may or may not include Homo sapien.
I'm speculating that even though someone like Elon Musk says he doesn't believe in aliens, I believe the push to have a colony on Mars, this urgent, like very abrupt push to get there by 2032 or whatever it is related to what's going on. And I believe Elon Musk knows about it and just would never talk about that. It could be that the Greys offered humanity a chance to preserve a contingent of our species elsewhere. And so maybe we've chosen Mars as the most accessible option for that. But I think that they want us off the surface of the Earth so they can introduce their upgrade. Just as Homo sapiens replaced Neanderthals, Homo exogenous, that's what I'm calling the new version, will replace Homo sapiens. I'm just an art director from Chicago who has had a lifetime of bizarre encounters with these people from elsewhere, and I'm no deeper into the community than that. I'm a lab rat who decided to come out and talk about the experience from inside the lab. And, it's like they hold me up by the tail and stick things in me.
Do the Greys know about your book and what it is that you're putting in the book?
There was one encounter I had where I asked if they could allow me to be fully conscious and in full command of my faculties during a visit. When they take me, could they let me be fully awake and in charge of my own body? And I was asked, what would you do if we allowed that? I think I was kind of tricked into being honest. I'd tell everybody. I would contact the newspapers. I would write a book. I would do this. I would do that. And I think it was after that they stopped letting me be awake during encounters. I don't think they'd be happy that I wrote the book.
And yet, isn't that sort of schizophrenic? The Greys are wanting to hybridize humanity into another genetic form so that they can take the Earth. So why wouldn't they want this to move forward more rapidly with humans knowing the truth?
It's easier to take something from somebody if they don't know they're being taken from. If they want to depopulate us, it's better to do it. It's kept quiet until it's too late for us to mount an effective response.
And do you think that Donald Trump and his advisors right now in 2025 know everything that you know?
This is the kind of information that, in terms of military intelligence, is highly compartmentalized. There are some presidents that are probably trusted with certain information as a result of their willingness to help funnel money into black projects.
President Eisenhower, as far as I know, did sign a treaty that his name is on it with a date.
Yes.
Our being able to work with the Greys and allowing them to harvest fluids and tissues from cattle and other animals on the Earth up to a certain point, and that was the beginning of the government making deals with ETs that have been secret for the last half century.
Right. And that was after we started lighting off nuclear bombs and testing. The breeding program goes way back to the last ice age. Their agenda now is to live here and join with us, two species becoming one species. They showed me images of my offspring, images of where they're being kept underground. They even allowed me to meet one of my offspring that I believe was stolen from an ex-girlfriend of mine's womb. I did have a conversation with a tall gray once where he said that we need to get rid of our nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons are awful, and if one goes missing, it's a full-on alert to try to recover it. And based on some things that I've read, but even based on just what I saw and logic, I believe that they are creating hybrids that are part us, part them, maybe some other animal DNA thrown in there somewhere for some adaptive reason, who knows. But we're being hybridized, I believe, because they want to replace Homo sapiens with a new version of mankind. And I think they want to replace our cultures with theirs. I think they want to live here on Earth, but they can't live on the surface because their eyes are too sensitive to daylight. They can't handle the UV radiation very well. Just as we, Homo sapiens, replaced the Neanderthals, Homo exogenous, that's what I'm calling the new version, will replace Homo sapiens.
I urge all of you to read Erik Nanstiel's new book, available now at Amazon. Search that title, Angst in the Shadows, a true story of alien abductions. And this week, Erik also emailed me, quote, Bob Lazar, one of the most well-known figures in UFO disclosure, described being briefed on underground installations where extraterrestrials worked with humans on genetic research. He also spoke of massive underground transport systems, suggesting a vast network of hidden tunnels running beneath the United States. And I personally, in investigations with abductees, have run into people who have described transportation deep underground from like the Midwest to the West Coast, really long tracks. And then Erik goes on with, there is the hollow earth theory, which, while controversial, suggests that vast subterranean spaces may house ancient extraterrestrial outposts or breakaway civilizations. Some researchers believe that certain deep cave systems remain unexplored because they may lead to active alien or non-human settlements. And, quote, if the caverns beneath Illinois, and this is Erik talking to me recently, are part of this larger phenomena, then I have to wonder how many of these installations deep underground exist worldwide. Could the Greys be selectively placing these hybrid centers near population hubs, ensuring that they remain close to the genetic material that they need? And if these underground chambers aren't just for breeding, but for eventual habitation, what does that say about their long-term plan for the hybrids? The answers are not clear, but what is clear is that the map that I was shown, Linda, fits within a much larger historical and modern context, whether in ancient legends, UFO testimony, or direct encounters like mine. The story is the same. They are here, and many of them are down below us, close quote. And Ian, I know that you're there and want to say hello and introduce you to the live Earthfiles audience now, with having you pick up, perhaps with the chat, on this question that always hangs in the air for me. How many abductees, how many analysts, how many people actually know from experience that there are Greys that are based deep underground in many different parts of our planet Earth? And that what Erik Nanstiel's very important work brings to the surface is that we need to understand we need to understand which non-humans are here and why are they where they are and what will be proposed perhaps in the future. And I wonder how many viewers right now in the chat might have had experiences in which they have been shown or told. How many people around us know that there are grays based deep, deep, deep inside of our Earth? I think that would be an interesting question to see if we could get feedback. And right now, I'm throwing it to you to see if you have a link.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. That's a fascinating interview there with Erik. And again, his book is Angst in the Shadows, and actually his website, I believe, is Angst in the Shadows.
And if you look in a dictionary and look up the definition of angst, A-N-G-S-T, which is not a word that we all use often, but I remember when I was interviewing Erik for the first time, and he was talking about how that word angst just kept beating in him, that the whole, his whole investigation of what has been with him since his 1-year memory of that white sphere and he was in the crib onward is angst, because he wants to know more. He wants to know the truth like the rest of us, but that it gets to a point where it becomes disturbing. It becomes such a challenge to understand at the human level of who they are, how long, why they're here, and that to him, angst about the current presence of the grays, and there are others, is to him the important word in his experience and in his book.
Yeah, and it's funny that you go straight in there to the word angst, because the word angst, as Blue Sky reminds us in the chat, is also the German word for being scared, or I think maybe they mean sacred as well. In German, it would call Angst in Satan, and I believe that Erik is of German and Irish descent as well, and his experiences are also generational. He ticks all of the boxes in a lot of these experiences that other people have been having, and he seems to, as well as starting off with the angst of the orb appearing as a young child, lots of people start off with that memory of just seeing the orb emerging from the closet, and how many people then go on to perhaps remember that that's the start, probably the start of a lifelong series of abduction experiences.
Right, and it reinforces what has been emerging more and more in the last year or two in my work, is that the spheres, the orbs, are really important when it comes to a technology that at least the grays, and perhaps the tall whites, but the grays for sure, have used in almost teaching and interaction with humans. When they show up, there is going to be some kind of an exchange with the people that are there. And the very fact that this happened in his first year, having been born only for 1 year, and one of these basketball-sized white spheres showed up. Remember when I have been doing interviews and have talked about orbs, that they're colors, there's color codings, and the green is the one that seems to be more dangerous, and they go orange, red, orchid, white, and it is a technology that I think is extremely ancient, and that the grays in their presence on the earth have been using literally for millennia. And today, it's like for the first time, orbs, and you hear people say almost immediately, and what color was it? Because we are, as humans now, beginning to associate what we have heard from other people and what is evolving in interviews like this one and others, that people are trying to talk about what they have experienced directly with the technology side or the being side. And it always involves similar technologies case to case. And that makes this, I think, especially fascinating. Erik's entire life, he has been interacting with these beings.
Yeah, another fact that Erik brings up are the screen memories he has, including a screen memory of the one abduction where he thought he was in Germany with the landscape, the buildings, and even the children were described as perhaps children would be in a Bavarian traditional landscape. Raven, in the audience tonight, says, "If my dreams with the Greys were real, then they like to disguise the ship as a corporate office, like a boardroom." And we've heard this before, where people have perhaps had experiences where they've thought that they were having an interview in an office in a place, or that they've visited a certain place. These are the screen memories, right, that they are able to employ, and whether or not that's just to calm the witness or to cajole them along with what they're doing, or what the real purpose is. But again, Erik reports the same sort of things.
And Ian, you know how we talk about shape-shifting and the ability of the ETs to be invisible and or take on something in the environment. There is a fascinating image that Erik has in the book about where he's not sure, was he physically there? He thinks he was. Did it go in a craft? It's not quite clear, but he ends up in what he thinks looks like a Bavarian village in Europe, and he was in the United States. And he thinks that he is looking at 3 Greys from where he started in the United States. And now they're in what looks like a Bavarian village, these 3 Greys, and then suddenly a tall Grey appears, and the 3 little Greys transform like a jump cut into 3 blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls dancing. As if to demonstrate, this is what we can do. That essentially you can't trust what you're seeing with your mind and your eye if you're with ETs and they want to shapeshift or change the scene or test, that it is their, I guess you would say, their control over light and matter around is that refined. They can do it so easily. Are you there?
Yeah, you're right. It's as though they tune in to exactly what the cultural references may have been. As I said, Erik, I believe, is of Irish and German descent, so it would figure that they would perhaps use a German image as well. I worked with a Mexican abductee who here in England had an abduction experience, but her abductors, the Greys, were actually screen memories of mariachis, Mexican mariachis, in the environment of a coffee shop. So, again, the cultural traditions are represented there.
Well, in this book, I just can't urge people enough to get this book. He sent me to look at, it was almost, I think, 30 images, because he's a very good illustrator himself and he's the experiencer. And I think that these are some of the best illustrations that I have ever seen from what the Greys are in the environment with Erik. And that when you look at some of the detail and you realize that the Grey ability to shapeshift, to take over a mind, take over vision, eyes, and that's how they can control the environment of the human. And that when you finish reading this incredible book with these incredible illustrations in it, for the very first time in my life, of all of the material for the last 45 years of trying to get to the bottom of what is behind animal mutilations and human abductions and so many things, this is the first time that I came away from all of the details in the illustrations and the very refined visibility that Erik talks about in the book of his interactions with the beings, where for the first time I could imagine that if we were introduced straightforwardly and honestly, that there could be cohabitation. And yet other people will argue there will never be cohabitation. Humans are too different from greys and other ETs. But I would suggest, and I'm not sure what Erik would say, but I would suggest that this book is like a kind of open introduction to what humans would have to absorb and work on themselves if we were to end up in a cohabitation relationship with non-humans. Is that even tenable? And that question has been brought up before by other people. And maybe with the appearance now of this book, as honest as it is, with these amazing illustrations that Erik Nanstiel has done, that we are getting closer to opening up, because this is the kind of introduction and more that we humans need, because we've never ever really been told the truth. And this is like a transition. It feels like a transition that one way or the other, we're finally going to reach a point in the timeline where somehow this is going to be opened up, whether it is a proposal by the governments of the world to the non-humans, okay, you would like to cohabit with us. This is what we need. And I'm curious, Ian, if you posed a question to our audience tonight, is there anybody who has had experiences of some detail with, let's say, the Greys, and they've seen the shape shifting, and they feel, that's the question, do they feel that we are getting to a point where humans could cohabit Earth with other intelligences such as the Greys?
Yeah, that's an interesting question about whether we are going to be cohabiting in the new Earth that they have planned for us, perhaps, or whether they are going to replace us, or gradually replace us, or they're going to be a mix of original ET Greys with, let's say, humans and human hybrids. Whether or not the three are going together. It brings us to a question here from Miles Grigg-Slezak. Says, have the abductions slowed down? And Chris Cummins says, they have been working on perfecting hybrids for many years. They will implement their plan eventually. So whether or not the hybrids and the stage is set yet, or if there's still work to be done. What's your opinion on whether or not the abductions are slowing down, Linda?
Well, I don't know if they are speeding up, slowing down, or neutral, because when I think about the abduction interviews I've done, and I think that it's a fair figure, about 3,000 people I have talked to with at least some depth since 1979. And where we are today, I think of themes that have come up, such as the tubes that are in my Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2. And that over the years, tubes have been described by other people who did not want their names associated with it, because it implies the possibility of extraterrestrials not only being able to take our biological body, but that they might be able to interact with us at a soul level. And that hangs out there as one of those difficult questions. And depending upon over the years, it is to a point now where I think Erik feels that whatever has been happening between him his whole life at 56 and from age 1, the sphere in his crib, that I don't think that he feels fearful of them. I think he has become used to how they appear, disappear, what they do, the extraction of sperm, and so forth. But what is important are that the layers now, as we are in 2025 and going toward this pivotal 2030 year that's been on remote viewers' lists for a long time, that this may be a crunch time where introducing, finally, actual other beings from someplace else in the universe to humans is going to be important to get through this year to the next 10 years. And it's in that context that we don't have humans learning from, watching, being introduced to. And I think that's one of the problems. We're being exposed because of books and podcasts and television and feature films. But the actual interaction, like Erik has had for his life with the Greys, has not been a common part of human civilization. And that's why knowing what the abduction syndrome, why are some people abducted and others are not? Does it have a lot to do with Rh factors? It's my understanding from some people in medicine that that may play a role. Why are there so many abductees that are Rh negative? Whitley Strieber has made a contribution of doing research about the different copper, molecular copper, in, let's say, a bovine, a cow, in the cow blood. There's a structure of the copper, but it's different from the copper, the molecular copper structure in human blood. And that it may be an insight into the Greys. It's been suggested in various abductions of these 3,000 over the last 45 years. And I'm talking to people, is the sense that they are not doing anything idly, that there is a specific purpose about the people that have been abducted. There is a very specific reason. It might involve sperm, and that illustration that Erik has with all of those white different heads, like a museum or a science lab that you would go to look at what were the end products of genetic manipulation, and all of those different heads backlighted. What exactly the Greys, the tall whites, the reptilians, the teals, there's standing up lizards, and the Greys, what each one wants or needs is another part of the general population is not exposed. But I personally think that going back to World War II, that it is very true what William Mills Tompkins told me in that 5-hour interview that I did before he died at, I think at age 94. Linda, World War II was an extraterrestrial war fought through human bodies. And that implies that humans, without knowing, are being allied with or subjected to control or investigation or abductions because of specific Rh negative blood factors, semen, that there is something that has to do with biological evolution and perhaps sustaining life, that it may be that serious for some of these. And that is now where we come to the intersection today. Ian, I'd be curious if you would agree. It is this intersection where we are given enough information about ETs that these more complex questions about why, going all the way back 270,000 or 270 million years, depending on who you're talking to, that there have been multiple ETs using this solar system and on our planet. and they have always had deep underground sites, deep beneath the oceans, deep inside of mountains, so that the surface of the Earth might pose a danger, so that extraterrestrials who know what they're doing, maybe planet by planet by planet, they're always looking for what are safe interiors. And that right now in 2025, what is one of the most, I would say, talked about subjects of the next decade, it's the issue, will our sun micronova by 2030 or 2035? The date and the concept of that as a possible threat to the surface life of our planet has been talked about now for quite a while by remote viewers. And now we are in 2025, and we are on a planet that psychologically seems to be under a tremendous amount of stress from the 8 billion humans of so many different blood types, politics, everything. We're an agitated planet. Is the agitation coming before the event and it's known to the ETs? Or is it not clear even to the ETs what is going to happen on Earth's timeline next that could be consequential? And finally, in that whole huge big box of which ETs are doing what with which humans and communicating how, is what does happen if we're reaching a point where we're going to have extraterrestrials on planet Earth with us to help humans get through a possible threat. And when it's put that way to me, that's when I feel we should all be exposed to every possibility and that the governments should be supported in telling the truth. But I'm going to segue from that back to Ian to say, Ian, perhaps you can pose the question out to our current audience that would people support tonight being told everything that the governments and the ETs know about what could be coming on our sun in 5 or 10 years that might be a threat to surface life on the Earth, that it's happened before? What would people favor now about what should be told humanity?
Yeah, we'll see what the audience reaction is to that, but we've been running the poll while you've been talking there, Linda, about do you think humans can cohabit on Earth with ETs? And it's currently running at 78% in favour of yes, they agree. 22% do not agree. So we're running that poll at the moment. Also been...
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Chris George Alexander has told us, my childhood experiences involved going to an underground base. I was 3, so I didn't experience it as a base because I had no concept of a base. It was a school, but not. Work involved memory and DNA. And he goes on to say, maybe we're being changed to save us. Maybe we are being changed because it's our inevitable evolution. I'm totally in agreement about caverns. Been there, done that. We know almost nothing about what's under our feet.
Right. Deep, deep, deep into the center. And this is one fact that I know, I've mentioned it before, and it's important tonight. There is a cavern, that is the word that is used in the science. There is a cavern deep, deep, going between the surface of Earth to the core. We have an iron core, but between the iron core and the surface, there is a cavern that could accommodate Mount Everest, the tallest mountain on our planet Earth. The idea that there can be areas inside the center of our Earth that could accommodate something that big means that we don't really, as a general population, understand the inside of our own planet very well. But the ETs certainly do. And as we look again at where we are, 2025, 2030, and 2035 were the years that I have heard in the past about this possible micronova. What do you think, Ian? Could humans, if we were told all of the truth, do you think that humans could suddenly take on cohabitation with non-humans who say they're here only to help us and that they're going to help us get through a micronova? Do you think the planet could take it?
Sometimes it may be the only option is for ET intervention to help us to prevent the effects of that sort of catastrophe, which would could be devastating for us here. Andrew Rowlands has a good point. He says that I'm glad that he says the Greys have told me I have 2 hybrid children. They are the future of our species. Our souls are evolving and need improved containers. He also says they will make themselves known because of the threat of an extinction event, and we shall all know soon enough it's going to happen within my lifetime.
Yeah, that 2030, 2035, that was those 2 years were in the remote viewing that was done at the end of the 80s with the group of very talented remote viewers such as Lynn Buchanan and others that were working for the NSA, the DIA, and the CIA. And I have done some reports at Earthfiles.com, my website, news website, as well as here at the Earthfiles YouTube channel, about the remote viewers, trained and talented. I think that this is correct, that all of them got some impression about some event that was going to happen on or before 2030 or 2035 that would be a huge Earth event, and that they saw it tied into this micronova physics of our sun. And part of me feels like we all should have known everything about whatever the government was learning back in the 80s to the early 90s for something coming up in 2030, 2035. But maybe in the long run, we are now at such a point of agitation with each other as humans that the planet itself is beginning to be overly chaotic, city to city, as well as changes in the temperature of the planet, which will definitely end up doing damage. That maybe this is the only way that literal extraterrestrial, biological, and artificial intelligent beings from other solar systems, perhaps even other universes, can come because they know, because they can access time, because they know how to view in time, and then they know how to go back into time and manipulate time to avoid catastrophes. That's been stated to me in almost those words. So 2025, July. I'll throw it out to all of you guys.
Yeah.
That in the next Earthfiles YouTube channel, or maybe the 2 from now, I'll see what happens. I would very much like to hear from you, confidentially, totally, or Linda, it's okay for you to quote my words, but I want you to know X, Y, and Z about your own interactions with what you know are other intelligences that you have met, that you have had telepathy, that you have had them touch you and you have touched them and you know they are another species. The big question for me is, I think that books like Chris Hardy's about the nuclear wars of the Anunnaki, that the Anunnaki are a big player when it comes to the Earth, but we know so little outside of translations. And a question came up in a phone call yesterday with somebody I was talking about exactly that. And the question, if the Anunnaki are brilliant and territorial, and they already have done one phase of owning, operating, mining from Earth, and if we are facing something that could be a global dramatic event, why wouldn't those beings that have been here long enough before, they have their own problems that they have to deal with, they come and go, why couldn't we be introduced to them in a temporary way in the context of a natural evolving physical threat to the Earth and the solar system? And if people say it's because everybody would be afraid, well, what could be, at least to my way of thinking, more important to learn about ETs from another galaxy versus what is a micronova of our sun in relationship to what happens on the surface of the Earth, which is where humans live, versus a variety of internal bases in the Earth, in Mars, in our moon, in Ganymede. There really are ET bases in those places. We've known it for a long time. We've probably been there with some of the ETs that help us. But my point is, wouldn't this be a perfect moment in the evolution of the Earth for Homo sapien, one of the genetic experiments by extraterrestrials, who is now facing the potential of physical revolutionary problems, that whether we were here physically or not on Earth, they would still happen, that there are events that are related to astronomy, to the cosmos, to the evolution of suns and galaxies and planets, up to different universes and different dimensions. How are we going to ever survive our ignorance on planet Earth long enough to live and go through more cycles if we don't start being told the whole truth now, so we can absorb it, so there can be definitions of here's what we're going to do, and here is why, and here is who's going to help us. And that, Ian, that is what I'm wondering. What with our people in the chat, what is their reaction that we might be in some kind of a jeopardy time? But if we could be taught and educated, and we could work with ETs that are introduced as having an interest in keeping our genetics going, wouldn't that perhaps be a good way to be introduced to other life in the universe?
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat at the moment. Some people are saying they could definitely get along with ETs, and but the trouble is that the people, the leaders and people in charge in the government may feel threatened, and also who is going to be in charge. Are humans still going to have a voice in this new situation?
Well,
Eric, I want to acknowledge the
Erik Nanstiel in this book, which I hope all of you will read. He comes into this from the intelligence that he has because he has been interacting with the non-humans since he was an infant to 56. He's still here, he's smart, he does beautiful artwork, he has written a really important book, and they are encouraging him Do you see what I'm saying? It's not like that there's a threat.
Yes, of course.
They are encouraging him, and he made this point that I thought was really also important, and another to throw to you guys, that as the evolution from age 1 to 56, with these beings being in his life the whole time, and his learning that they were taking his sperm and other sperm to create different hybrids, that he doesn't feel threatened as much as we need to be introduced to this so that we are in a more equal footing with other beings from this galaxy, from another galaxy, from inside this universe, if humanity is going to survive itself. And I think everybody tonight would understand that statement. We are an agitated species. We are definitely not doing agape hugs to each other around this planet. And we need to. And that the non-humans basically, if they've demonstrated something to Erik, that he hopes we will see happen. And that is, how do you cohabit with other life forms, with changes in atmospheric weather systems, the changes in suns, the changes in galaxies. This is a gigantic universe, and probably one of an infinite number of universes if we knew the whole truth. And that these beings take what they want to take. Why shouldn't we be taught and helped to survive? Because we might end up helping them as much as they help us. That's my point of view now, and I throw it back to you, Ian, and to our chat.
Yeah, well, we've just concluded the poll tonight. Question we asked was, do you think humans can cohabit on Earth with ETs? The answers are in on 395 votes. Yes, 78%, no, 21%.
Well, those numbers, yeah, they're holding up, aren't they? About 80 to 20.
That's right. Yes, it's a pretty good result from this audience anyway. I'm not sure what it would be if we polled it to a wider audience, but this audience are invested in this phenomena as well, and many of the people in this audience are also experiencers themselves.
What is your own gut feeling, Ian Halling, about you're a male human, you have been very much exposed to details in crop formations, abductions, animal mutilations. At this point, July 16th, 2025, what is your own gut intuitive reaction to some of the questions we're raising tonight about your own inner feeling of, can we be introduced now to other ETs and keep going?
Well, I'm still analysing the data as I always do, but I have to say that this is a theme that we've heard more than once from different people, and I would say that humans need to be advanced spiritually, more advanced spiritually. We're maybe going through shifts with that happening at the moment, where we actually catch up with the ETs so that we are in a better position as humanity to manage to live together. A lot of us would feel automatically ready, but there's many in the world who are perhaps not ready, let's say ready spiritually advanced in this. Plus also there's the power systems that are going on with the control and the control systems that have controlled this, and this so-called, the truth embargo, etc., for at least 80 years or so. So we're up against it. But at the end of the day, the ETs obviously do seem to control the situation.
And why?
More than one agenda available.
Yeah, and everything you're saying is valuable. And why then? Was World War II an extraterrestrial war fought through human bodies? I'm asking it rhetorically, knowing that you, I, and many people have talked about that at great length, and that I completely believe William Mills Tompkins, that was the context in which he worked for the Navy and was a very, very valuable asset in the Navy. And he was doing that long interview with me to say, Linda, everybody needs to know the truth about the planet we are actually on. World War II was an extraterrestrial war fought through human bodies. It is now 2025. We're still here, 8 billion humans. But there is this sense that to keep going forward into a future that would be viable on a planet in which the environment itself, the temperature of the planet, is going to be increasing for the foreseeable future. And we humans cannot take for granted that what we are living in now will always be available. And if we, as a whole planet, in all languages, were being taught the truth, it might strengthen humanity, and it might make it more possible for a Homo sapien to look into the eyes of another Homo sapien and say, you are a fellow being, and I will help you survive. That's my prayer.
Yes, and that may be the only hope that we have going forward. I want to acknowledge the super chats tonight and say thank you for our audience for their donations. Moonbird, the R. Elizabeth, Dal Saratov Vanova, Robert Escobar, Yin Yang Glow, and Chris George Alexander. Thank you very much. And I want to let everybody know as well that this episode of Earthfiles and all episodes of Earthfiles are available as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts from, and ask people to please like us and subscribe to go forward.
Yes. We've broken through 290,000 subscribers, right?
That's right. I think we're just approaching 291,000 at the moment.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. I feel personally, I just want you to know, I feel a personal connection when we have these dialogues on Wednesday nights to all of you in a way that feels like the soul sense of that pressure in your chest that sometimes brings tears to your eyes, that there is something that is encouraging and fortifying to me to know that 290,000 of you have subscribed and we keep on growing, and that the dialogue, when we have the lights go down and the camera is off, I have sat in here just feeling the energy of unification with fellow beings who have fellow souls that recycle through a process that we humans don't fully understand, but that the matter phase that we are in has an energy phase, has another frequency phase, and that what is exciting is the possibility that we actually, this 8 billion people, could survive the chaos and continue on a planet that will be introduced to non-humans who do understand the importance of frequencies and the souls. The souls are the carrier of information. And on that note, I want to give a huge Agape hug to every one of you everywhere on this planet. Agape to a friend. Agape to a fellow being. If we could live like that, without fear of nukes, maybe that's where Earth is headed. But we've got to be introduced to the higher intelligences in order to learn enough to start living stronger lives and knowing that our souls are real. And on that note, I love you guys, fellow beings on Earth. May we be introduced in a happy, joyous way. No war, no nukes. See you next week.
Turn on closed captions for YouTube videos by clicking the white CC button on the lower right. The default language for Linda's videos is English. If you would like to see the captions in another language, click on the white settings button next to the CC button. Select Subtitles CC, and then select Auto Translate. Select a language, and the captions will now appear in that language.
Sort of gone through, and they will hold their heads. I never had a cat do that before. And they'll pull against the comb, helping me get out snarls. And I think it's the best they've ever been.